everyone, happy Victober to you. And I wanted to talk today about where I started with different Victorian authors. So these are all authors that I've read more than one novel, with one exception. And I just thought it would be interesting to talk about kind of what my start with them was like. Some were very positive, some were in between, and some were kind of negative. So the first author is Charles Dickens, and I started with Oliver Twist. This was a book that I read. I listened to it on audiobook, and I'll just always remember being completely blown away by the complexity of the plots, I should say, how all of these plot lines that you have no idea how they're going to successfully connect, and then Dickens brings it all together brilliantly in the end. And it's one that I do want to revisit it because I just remember what an exciting reading experience it was. And yeah, it was just lovely to read and a great note to start off on Dickens. He's one of the authors that I've had very up-down experiences with, but that's a very positive reading memory for me, and so I'll always have a special place in my heart as my first Victorian novel. Then with Anthony Trollope, I started with The Way We Live Now, which I think might be a bit of an uncharacteristic beginning, but my aunt, who is quite a reader, she asked me, Kate, would you read this with me? And I came out of The Way We Live Now kind of having the done and dusted mentality and feeling relieved. And so then last year, when it was the group read, I came in hoping, well, now that I'm rereading it, I'll feel differently about it. And everyone in the comments, when I said I didn't have a very positive first experience, was so confident that I was going to feel so very differently about The Way We Live Now my second time. And I have to tell you, I didn't complete it last year. I did not complete the group read. Bad host, I know. And I felt the same way about it. It's just so unique, the reading experience. It's so individual to each reader. And because there's been some Trollope that I love. And I know that the Belton Estate, it's way up there for me in his books. And it is some that other people, they don't get at all. So unfortunately, The Way We Live Now, I don't know when I feel like revisiting it. Also because Trollope has so many books that I'm excited to get to. So I feel like making my way through others instead. Then the Bronte sisters. My first Charlotte Bronte was Jane Eyre. I feel like that's such a great starter Victorian novel and such a great entry point into Victorian literature. And yeah, it blew my mind the first time I actually read the full-length novel. I have listened to an abridged audio drama of it, but listening to the full-length novel the first time. And Wuthering Heights, I read for the first time. It was my second year of college, and I was just reading it for fun in my free time, and I came out. I think it didn't really blow my mind, but I thought, what an interesting novel. Like, I found it enjoyable, and I will never understand because I'm such a sentimental kind of reader. I love warmth in books, but for some reason Wuthering Heights just really works for me. So I don't know why. I don't know how to explain to you why I love it the way that I do, but I do. And the next time I read it, it sealed the deal. Like, oh, this is an all-time favorite. It's such a powerful, just explosion of a novel. So that's, the only Emily Bronte novel. But I had to put it on the list. And then my first Anne Bronte was The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. An unpopular opinion, I don't enjoy The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And I know it is totally a booktube darling among the Victorian literature readers. I've read it twice and felt the same way about it the second time as I did the first time. And next, from George Eliot, the first George Eliot that I read that goes against the advice that I give everyone now was Middlemarch. And that I came out of kind of done and dusted. Boy, that was so much work to read that. But I did let myself celebrate finishing it by buying the Penguin Deluxe edition of it. So I love that edition. And it was one that I thought, I'm never revisiting that. But I think what happened is that I read Daniel Deronda and really enjoyed Daniel Deronda, and then read Adam Bede. And so I thought, maybe I should come back to Middlemarch. And I'm just so glad that I did. So yeah, it's one that it took me a while to fall in love with it, but I love it more and more. Just as time goes and I think about it, and I know when I read it again, I'll just love it even more. Then let's see here. From Elizabeth Gaskell, my first was North and South. That was another one that I was relieved to be done with it after I finished it. I was newer to reading Victorian literature, and so it just felt so challenging. I had to concentrate so much while reading it, and I just felt very mentally taxed by reading it. So it was a delight to come back to it a few years after that and completely adore it and be like, okay, I get kind of all the fuss over it. And yeah, just such a treat. Then from Charlotte Mary Yonge, who I came to her later in my Victorian reading experience, and there's been no looking back ever since I read The Heir of Redclyffe. I felt so I had trouble kind of processing the amount of excitement I had as I was reading it, because I always say that Charlotte Mary Yonge's books are what I wanted Louisa May Alcott's other books to be, besides Little Women. Like, I love Little Women, but then the other ones, I have not liked anything anywhere close to Little Women. And then I read Charlotte Mary Yonge, and her books have a beautiful way of portraying faith without making it saccharine, and showing how you should view your faith being lived out in the everyday. It's not just a statement of beliefs that you say when you're, sitting in a church. And she does it so beautifully. And how growing as a person can be really painful and hard. But then after you have it, the being on the other side of that is so rewarding. Okay, the next author is Thomas Hardy, who if you watch my channel for any amount of time, you know I have a very up and down relationship with Thomas Hardy. I started with Under the Greenwood Tree, was very underwhelmed by it. I didn't like Fancy Day. Then last year, I reread Under the Greenwood Tree, and I felt exactly the same way. So I think it's just not the book for me. I think I resent, that's what it is. I resent that it is this seemingly kind of heartfelt small town story, and then it ends on such a sinister note. And it's only a passing line. It's just this one line. But to me, it speaks volumes about the story. So I'm like, can't we just have one thing that's a little bit happy? Thomas Hardy, can't we? Then from Wilkie Collins, I started with the big one, The Woman in White, and it completely blew my mind. It made my Victober that year. I loved it so much. It was just the most amazing reading experience. The sustained tension that Wilkie Collins has in there would put so many modern thriller authors to shame. I just love sensation novels, and this is one of the absolute best. It's one I think actually for the 10th Victober, I'd like to reread it. So we'll see. My TBR might change. I'm always tweaking future Victober TBRs. Then from Robert Louis Stevenson, I started with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And unfortunately, this one disappointed me. I wanted to be scared out of my wits, and I was not scared in the least. The reputation that it has, I was just like, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm just not going to be able to sleep at night. I'm so scared. And so I think my expectations were too high. And similar to that was my experience with The Hound of the Baskervilles. I thought it was going to be so scary, and it was not scary in the least. I was very underwhelmed by it. I haven't had a full-length Holmes novel that I've loved. So I just like to stay in my lane with the short stories, and I have an absolute blast with Conan Doyle's writing with that. There is also, he has a shorter novel called Beyond the City that for years I have meant to read, and it just hasn't happened. Then for Mary Elizabeth Braddon, I started with Lady Audley's Secret, and that was so fun to have a female sensation novelist that I was reading and trying, just experiencing such a, just the atmosphere was so potent, and I was so compelled to keep reading and keep turning the pages. And what's so fun about it is that it's really held up for a reread. I find the stepdaughter of Alicia Audley such an interesting character. She's my favorite character in that story. So yes, such an enjoyable read. So if you would like to comment down below kind of where you started with authors that you've read more of more than one book from, I would love to hear, and kind of your initial thoughts and if it's the same. And yeah, so I hope that you're having a great Victober, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye.